Last time we did a tier list for My Hero Ultra Rumble, we let the community decide where characters should be placed. This week, we are going to be doing the same thing, but we have even more votes that have determined where characters are going to be. Some characters are going to be moving from where they are placed right now. Some characters will be staying the same. So welcome to the week 3 tier list of season 2. We are going to be taking a look at the pie charts this time around, and I will show you guys the voting percentages for the pie charts. That way you can see just how overwhelming some of these votes are for certain characters. So the very first character we're going to be looking at is Midorya. Midorya has a 59% rating for S tier. That's pretty dang good. And then 38% of people thought that Midorya belonged in A tier. So right now he is currently in S tier, and I do just want to point out these tiers are not in order. Because Midorya is above All Might, it does not mean Midorya is better than All Might, so keep that in mind. Eventually, once we kind of settle as a community on exactly where characters are going to be tier-wise, then I might set up another Google form where we determine, which characters are at the top of S tier, which characters are at the top of A tier, so on and so forth. But for right now, we're just trying to get characters into the correct tiers with where the community thinks they should be, okay? So Midorya is an S tier. The next character is Bakugo. Look at this. Look at this. Even with the nerfs that they have done to Bakugo, still at this time, Season 2, Week 3, Bakugo is still a freaking menace. 94.4% of people think that Bakugo is S tier. That is 67 votes. And then we have 3 votes for A tier and 1 vote for B tier. That person was probably just trolling. So Bakugo definitely still belongs in S tier. That's like the easiest thing to figure out, right? Next, we have Oraka. 59.2% of people actually say Oraka is A tier, whereas only 35% of people say that Oraka is S tier. So right now, we do have Oraka in A tier. I do have her towards the top of A tier. Once again, these aren't in order, so keep that in mind, that Oraka being at the top of A tier does not mean that she's better than Sue or Toga or anyone else. This is not in order, okay? Next, we have All Might. All Might has a percentage of 62% for S tier and 36% for A tier. He is currently in S tier, so we will leave him there. We had, 1 vote for B tier for All Might, which is, definitely not the case. And then Isawa, we have 62% of people said B tier, 29.6% of people said A tier, and 7% of people said C tier, and then we even had a one person actually say S tier. One person thinks Isawa is S tier, okay? So we are going to be putting Isawa into B tier. So he's going to be staying where he is at right now. The next character we're going to be looking at is Mount Lady. Mount Lady had 56.3% of votes for B tier, or 40 votes out of the 71 votes from the people who voted. And right now she is currently in B tier, so she's not going to be moving around much. And 28% of people said that she was A tier, and then we had 11% of people say she was C tier. We had 1% of people say D tier, and then actually 2.8% of people say S tier. Once again, if you guys do not agree with any of these rankings for characters, or you think the community is wrong, or like the votes are really close on a character and they could be S tier or A tier, then I will put a link to the Google form down in the description below. This will be a new Google form, so you will need to vote again if you have already voted, and we will redo this tier list next week and kind of see where people are at and see if we're still thinking the same things. And then we have Cementos here. Cementos is actually kind of close. We have 45.1% of people saying he is B tier, and then we have 36.6% of people saying he is A tier. So right now Cementos is in B tier. I would love to see him go up to A tier, guys. So if we can get him to A tier, let's do it. But don't vote for A tier if you don't agree with it. Only vote for A tier if you agree with it. Personally, I would put Cementos in A tier. I like him a lot in A tier, and I think he's actually really good. He has really good vertical movement, but he does lack that horizontal movement that you want to see with a character that's going to let him escape dangerous situations like Bakugo or Sue or any other character can really do besides Kendo and Ibra. Okay, next we have Dobby. 53.5% of people say Dobby is B tier, and then we have 21 people, or 29.6% of people saying he's C tier, and then we have 11 people saying he is A tier. I have seen comments galore on Dobby, some people saying he's bad, some people saying he deserves to be higher, but overall the community seems to agree Dobby is B tier, so that is where he is going to stay for right now. So far, all the week 2 votes that we had are staying the same for week 3. I'm pretty sure there are a few characters that are going to change. I looked over this before I did the video, so I don't remember which ones they were, but there was like 2 or 3 that are going to change, so stick around. Okay, next we have Compress. Compress had 47.9% of people voting for him to be in B tier, and then 28.2%, 20 people voted for him to be in A tier, and then for C tier, 14.1% or 10 people voted for him to be in C tier. So that means Compress is going to be staying in B tier for right now. Next up, we have Kirishima. Kirishima is overwhelmingly in A tier. 71.8% of people wanted him in A tier, so he's definitely going to stay in A tier. Besides A tier, the votes were for S tier, and the votes were for B tier, and then there was one singular vote for D tier. This person is literally just probably trolling to throw off the votes. That's okay, because we can see what the community thinks. And then we have Endeavor, the newest release character. This one has been kind of a split vote. It's pretty close, not that close, but it's fairly close. So 54.9% of people think Endeavor is A tier, 39 people. And then 26 people, or 36.6% of people, think he is S tier. I'm one of those people who thinks Endeavor could definitely be S tier. I think if All Might's S tier, Endeavor similarly S tier. All Might does have the ability to deflect stuff, which makes him slightly better, and he has more ability to deal with close range and long range and mid range, but Endeavor can do that long range sniping, and he has really good mobility, the same mobility as All Might plus then some. So I think Endeavor, there's an argument for him to be S tier, but we will move him down. All right, I will do it. We're gonna move him down from S tier. He was S tier last week. We're moving him down to A tier. All right, so hopefully you guys are okay with Endeavor being in A tier. And then next we have Ibra. Ibra was 50.7% of people said B tier for Ibra, and then 35.2% said C tier, and then for A tier we had 9 people, or 12.7%. So Ibra is going to go up from C tier, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with personally, but this is the community, okay? So I'll do what the community says. Community says Ibra is B tier, so we'll move her up. I think she's a good, solid character. She just lacks mobility and any real way to defend herself. She relies a lot on the team and the team comp, I feel like, to be a really useful character. Momo is 60.6% in A tier, so that's just pretty much overwhelmingly A tier. And so for that reason, we're going to leave her where she is. And then Kaminari, 69% of people think he is B tier. 18.3% of people think he is A tier, and then of course we have 11% of people that think he is C tier. So Kaminari is a B tier character, and that is where he is going to stay. A lot of B tier characters overall, and you might be thinking, how can you have a tier list with every character being B tier or higher? Well, every character in this game is good, and I think that just really speaks to what the devs have been doing with the balance of the characters. There shouldn't be any characters that are garbage, right? And so I think they've been doing a really good job overall, and I'm happy with the fact that we do have mostly B tier or above characters. But let me know what you guys think about that in the comments. And then next we have Ida. Ida has 53.5% of people saying he is an A tier. We do have 39.4% of people saying he is S tier. Now, the thing about Ida is, I think if you're looking like at a console player, they will say Ida's A tier. I think if you're looking, PC player, they'll say Ida is A tier. If you're looking at a console player, they will say Ida is S tier because he's harder to track down and actually kill. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. Let me know what you guys think once again. But for now, Ida is going to go down to A tier for the overwhelming 53.5% of people that think he is A tier. So last week he was S, now he's down to A. Things are changing a little bit. Next we have Kendo. Kendo is also going to be allowed to move up with Ibra. She is going from C tier, where she was last week, up to B tier. 53.5% of people think Kendo is B tier. 33.8%, which is still a pretty good amount, think she's C tier, but more people think she's B tier, which is good. I think her buffs to her speed have made her a lot better. And then she has 9.9% of people thinking she's A tier, and then we got some D tier, but no S tier votes for Kendo. So Here you go, Kendo. You've made it. You've made your way up to B tier. Congratulations. Next, we have Shigaraki. Shigaraki, 53.5% of people think he is A tier, and 33.8% of people think he is B tier. And so, Shigaraki gets to move up to A tier, along with his other counterparts here. I do think Shigaraki is probably an A tier character when it comes to damage, but in terms of mobility, I don't know that he necessarily deserves that A tier spot, but overall the community seems to think so that's where we'll put him. Next we have Todoroki, who is similar to Bakugo. I think Bakugo's pie chart was even more blue, but still a very blue pie chart. So Todoroki, S tier, and that's where we're going to keep him, obviously, because he's definitely an S tier character. Next we have Toga. Toga's is really close, right? So if you wanted to make an impact on Toga because you have an opinion, make sure you vote on the Google form in the description for next week's tier list, because 46.5% of people, or 33 people, thought she was A tier, whereas 42.3% of people thought she was S tier. That was 30 people on S tier and 33 people on A tier. It's a 3-vote difference, okay? But for that reason, Toga is going to be staying in A tier, but she has almost made her way up to S tier. So if you think she belongs in S tier, go ahead and vote. If you think she belongs in A tier, go ahead and vote so you can keep her where she's at. Vote regardless, guys, please. And then next we have Sue. 50.7% of people think Sue is A tier now because she got massive nerfs. They nerfed her into the ground, right? 29.6% of people think she is still S tier, and then 16.9% of people think she's B tier. Personally, I don't think she's B tier. She's definitely A or S. I would actually lean towards S personally myself. As a PC player, I've played her quite a bit, but maybe on console she doesn't feel as strong anymore, and so I could understand why we have 36 votes for her to be in A tier, which is why Sue is going to be, of course, staying where she is. And I feel like Sue needs to be in B tier A tier if Oraka is in A tier. Sue cannot be higher than Oraka. Right now I think Oraka is definitely stronger than Sue, and they have very similar kits. And that is all of the characters. Below we have one last vote. Which system do you play on? And you guys can kind of see which systems people play on. So 32.4% of people play on PC, 29.6% of people play on PlayStation, 22.5% of people play on Xbox, 14.1% of people play on Switch, and then 1% of people play on something else, whatever that may be. But yeah, that is the tier list for this week. If you guys agree, let me know down in the comments. If you disagree, let me know down in the comments. And if you want to change this tier list so that it looks a little bit different next week, make sure you go down to the Google form in the description and you fill it out. It'll look exactly the same as the one you guys just saw, but with character pictures and stuff like that. If you guys enjoyed the video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, and hitting that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.
Can anybody out there